happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard.
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
A good-sized man, or something looks like a man.
Okay. You've had problems in the neighborhood before?
Yeah, my dog was killed here just recently. I don't know what it was.
Welcome to Sasquatch Hypotheses.
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sure.
Dia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
Son of a bitch is about 6'9".
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
And the guy is on foot.
I don't know what... It's a big, real big person.
But it is a person.
Yeah, I'd say it was a person, somebody really big.
Hello, folks. I just wanted to revisit the whole issue of the government conspiracies because of what I talked to in that last episode. I talked about doing a class action lawsuit to get the government to recognize Sasquatch, and talked about how they're brushing or sweeping stuff under the carpet and that kind of thing. And that implies a conspiracy, and it seems like I'm contradicting what I put in the other thing. And I guess in a way I am. When I did that first episode, I could not see any reason that would justify a government cover-up to the extent that people talk about, I guess. I kind of still don't, but I've run my opinion has changed as far as to whether this thing is not going to cooperate, whether there's enough of a reason for there to be some kind of cover-up. And I believe that that's the case. That's why I talked about the class action lawsuit. Now, let me get a few things put out there right up front. First of all, we all know nobody has a Sasquatch in their possession. Well, maybe the government has, maybe they haven't. I've heard they have, maybe not, I don't know. But in any case, the public has no access to any information they may have gotten if that were the case. So we have to go by the assumption nobody has, which is what I'm going by. So as far as I know, you can't really rule out any possibility with the Sasquatch. But we can go by certain things that are norms, like just regular nature. As far as Sasquatch being a primate, there are certain things a primate will do. And that's the perspective that I'm coming from when I talk about Sasquatch. Because I can't say, that they live underground and they have a fleet of intergalactic spaceships. And, I can't say that. That would be not only something nobody knows, but something that's kind of way out there and would sound crazy. Okay? So I'm not going to say that. I'll tell you, and I'm going to cover this in a minute, but if, let's say, I had been out in the forest and fell down a hole and, end up tumbling right into the hangar of their intergalactic spaceships and saw a bunch of Sasquatch walking around working on them and stuff, I still wouldn't tell anybody. And the reason why, unless I could prove it somehow or get people down there and blow it all out of the water, but if I can't prove anything, it would be ridiculous for me to say that. Not only would I look like a complete whack job, but it would hurt the effort in getting anyone to take Sasquatch seriously. So, which is what I'm going to talk about. Some of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about other things too, but I wanted to first of all touch on why I've kind of changed my mind as far as this conspiracy. Before I think I said something about the only reason that the government there would be a government cover-up is if like they knew that Sasquatch was sentient and that they would have to give up land and stuff like they did with the Native Americans, when we took all their land and now they have reservations and that we would have to do the same thing with Sasquatch. That would be the only reason that I think would be important enough for the government to try and cover it up. Still believe that. I still don't completely disbelieve that that's not the case. But The the whole business about the class action lawsuit gave me another reason to believe it, and that's just legal liability. I don't think the government wants legal liability for what the Sasquatch is doing, and it explains something I previously completely disbelieved, and that's that special forces was going in and killing these rogue Sasquatch. I was like, why would they do that? Well, now I know why. If they know that these Sasquatch are out there taking people's little girls out of their backyard and people's grandmothers and, all of that stuff, and let's assume that they've captured one and they kind of have an idea. They've studied it enough to where they understand their mentality. Maybe they've communicated with them. We don't know. If there's communication is possible with them, we've heard that there's Sasquatch vocalize and that they actually talk amongst themselves and stuff. I've never heard it myself, but it seems that the general consensus out there is that it's true. Well, that would imply that there is some form of communication that can be had with them. And if the government has had some, I guarantee that they've done it. They have communicated with them. Now, let's suppose that that's happened and they know roughly how their society works now, and that these Sasquatch that they're calling rogues, they're calling them that because that's what the other Sasquatch consider them as well. But well, from my perspective, I don't think that's the case. I think, have you ever, I'm sure you have, known somebody who would especially any of you preppers or survivalists who raise chickens and, goats and rabbits and all of that, and you eat the rabbits, you eat the goats, you eat the chickens, right? Well, your kids are out there playing with those rabbits and they think they're all cute and everything. And I've even seen in documentaries people talking about, picking up rabbits and saying, yeah, well, we have them here and to keep them under control. Obviously, we eat them every now and then, but the guy's petting, or the woman is petting the rabbit, and they think the rabbit's cute. But at the same time, later that evening, maybe that one, maybe its brother or sister, they're going to kill it and eat it. They on the one hand, they think that they're cuddly and everything, but on the other hand, they're just a source of food and they're a game animal. Okay. I think that that Sasquatch see us the same way. And I think that just like a lion, tiger, whatever, will go after the smallest or weakest of a herd of gazelle or whatever that they're hunting, that's what Sasquatch do. And that's our old and our children. So when we come out there as grown versions and chase after them, well, I guess gazelles might do that to protect their own. Zebras and stuff, they might team up and help each other. But when we go after them, that's why they run off. I heard Bear from Bigfoot Outlaw Radio talking about how him, his sister, and his brother were collecting fireflies in the field, and a Sasquatch came running out there, and he thinks the Sasquatch came out there because it wanted to play too. And he said that it was of age to where it was probably just recently kicked out of the family unit because it had become of age to go out on its own. Well, most of the rogue Sasquatch that I've heard of are either old and can't really hunt very well anymore, at least I would assume, or they're the very young who have been booted out and don't really, as far as the rest of the animal kingdom goes, this is the way it is. When the young males are kicked out, they haven't quite mastered the whole hunting thing, and sometimes they are animals of word just jumped right out of my head. Convenience, I think, is the word. So you have this young male, he hasn't eaten in a few days, and here he comes out there, and there's a little 4-year-old out in the field with an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. Well, he's pretty sure that if he goes hauling ass out there, he's going to grab one of them. I think that's what the case was. Okay, but anyway, I digress. I'm getting off subject. So when these special forces people are going out there and they're taking care of these rogue Sasquatch, I think what they're doing, that to me is a big indicator of what the government cover-up really is about. And it's about trying to minimize the damage, because I think the government knows that this is coming out, and it's coming out probably soon, and they need to minimize the damage as much as possible. So they're not going to allow these things to be out there just eating people helter-skelter as they wish. You know, whenever they can, they're going to send out some guys to take care of the problem. And I fully believe that, especially Sasquatch who have family units, probably don't participate in eating humans. I think it's mainly the young males who have been booted out, or the older males who are starving and have no other choice. I think those are the two categories. However, that trait or that perspective exists in all of them, just like it does with us. You know, I would never raise rabbits and kill them for supper. You know, I'll go down to Walmart and get me a couple of pounds of hamburger, but I would never do that. Rabbits are cute and cuddly. You know, I feel bad. However, if I was starving and I was out, hell yeah, I would take one down and eat it and feel terrible about it as I'm, munching it down. This, I believe, is the perspective of the Sasquatch. And the government is sending people out to put them down. They're putting down the old that can't hunt anymore, and they're putting down the young who, I would think, especially if you're a Sasquatch and you're young and strong and healthy and you're of age to go out there and do it on your own, if you're unable to, that's akin to some of our youths who don't go out and get a job, but instead start robbing liquor stores, right? That to me is what I think is the parallel. So for the government to go out and take in and put down a young Bigfoot who's taken to cannibalizing humans instead of hunting its own deer, or putting down the old Bigfoot who are just too feeble to hunt you could think of that as, being merciful for the old Bigfoot. But I think that's where we're at. I think that's the parallel. However, I think that any Bigfoot family who is starving, if for some reason the game weren't around, I think, yeah, absolutely, I think that they would eat humans. I think they see us as a last resort food source, and in extreme circumstances, they'll take us and they'll eat us. And I think that some of the rogue Sasquatches are the ones who, if I'm talking about the young ones, they were young, they're out there, they've set themselves up in an area where they have a plentiful supply of young humans that they can just pick off, or old humans, that they can pick off and eat, and they don't bother hunting deer. That's too much energy. Think about it. It's a lot easier to grab a 60-something-year-old woman who's walking up a trail, or a 5 or 6-year-old child who's playing hide and seek, than it is to chase a deer down. And Sasquatch are all about conserving energy. So, and there's a saying that once, some animals, once they get the taste of human blood, they'll continue to, that's why we put down dogs and stuff that bite. Once they do it, they'll continue to do it. Which is not correct, because my dog's bit me several times, and it's not like he does it all the time. He just does it when he's really angry. And I don't think he'd ever kill anybody, but, I don't think it's, once they taste blood, they'll keep coming back. But I think that in the case of the Sasquatch, if they find out that it's easy prey, they're going to keep doing it. Think about it in our society. We have, old guys who think you gotta honest day's work, honest day's pay. You gotta be a man up and do this and that. I think that big feet are the same way. They think if you're eating humans, then something's wrong with you, because you're not, Sasquatch enough to hunt your own deer. I think that's probably the case. Based on, I forget exactly what story it was, but there was a Sasquatch that was trying to get at a human, and another Sasquatch stopped it. So, I believe that's the case. I think that Sasquatch, the community, is very similar to ours. Very similar to probably mostly the good side of ours. But just like us, I mean, we've heard stories of people who have, what was it, a soccer team or whatever, they crash landed in the Andes, and they started eating each other. And then there's that bunch out in, I forget where it was. There's some, back in the Old West, who got stranded up on a pass in the Midwest, and they ate each other. I mean, humans will do it too. We're cannibalistic when we're pushed to that point. And I think Sasquatch are too. The only thing is, the Sasquatch also are in a position of seeing us as a weaker animal. We're smaller. They got to know that we're weaker. We're smaller. We're not as strong as them. We can't be. We're probably, from their perspective, I don't even think more vicious. I think maybe equally vicious. I mean, they know that they're going to have a fight, but they would ultimately win. I think that's their perspective on things. I don't think that they know just how badly they have us beat yet. But I think that's their perspective. And, I think the family Sasquatch see us as having our own families too. So a father Sasquatch is not going to come and eat our daughters or sons because they have their own daughters and sons. And I think they have a empathetic connection in that way, And I think that's why you hear some stories about kids who disappear and are never heard from again. And then you hear stories about little kids who say that a Sasquatch brought them back to the family. I think it just depends on the perspective and the life experiences of that Sasquatch. If it happens to be a young one that learned to eat people, the kid's dead. If it happens to be an older one who has his own family, they're going to help the kid back. That's just the case. But anyway, I'm off topic again. Sorry, folks. So government spirits, if you've listened to my other episodes, you know that I was in military intelligence for several years, for 5 years. And I worked at very high up level, worked with highly classified equipment, highly classified information. I reported directly to the director of the NSA's office, as well as the commanding general of the Army of the theater I happened to be in at the time. And so I dealt with some highly classified stuff. And one time, President Bush was supposed to walk through the facility I worked at. And we had to take thick blackout cloths and cover up some of the equipment that we used. And when I asked why we were covering up the equipment, the President of the United States is obviously cleared for anything. I was told, first of all, no, he's not. He is, but he isn't. And the reason he's not is because of plausible deniability. Plausible deniability means that if for some reason, after he tours our facility, a year down the road, a reporter or somebody else asks him about a piece of equipment that we have that the rest of the world doesn't realize we have, and then for some reason they hear about it. I mean, think about WikiLeaks or whatever, that the president can legitimately say he has no idea, he's never seen anything like that. As far as he knows, we don't have that piece of equipment. And that's the way SCI works. We were taught when we were in school for SCI that we had to maintain plausible deniability. That means neither confirm nor deny anything classified at all, a piece of equipment, piece of information, whatever. And whenever possible, the reason that it's called special compartmented information or whatever, we just called it SCI, is because it's and the reason it's compartmented is so that one compartment can legitimately say they know nothing about what's going on in the other compartment. And that's plausible deniability. That way nobody can put two and two together by talking to multiple people and putting together the pieces, because there's never a connection between the different areas. And that is what I think is going on as far as the government conspiracy. And I think it's also what, to me, proves that there aren't any government men in black going and visiting people who own a farm who are having Bigfoot activity. It's not happening. I don't think the people at the farm are lying. So before you turn it off and unsubscribe, I don't think that they're lying necessarily. Some probably are. Some are, trying to just be in the limelight and whatever. Some of them aren't. But the ones who aren't, who are getting visited by these people, are not being visited by a government representative who has been told by the highest levels of the government to go and cover this up. They may work for a branch of the government, but I don't think that this government conspiracy, as far as that's concerned, is being mandated by the upper echelons of the government. I think that there are different levels, and that they're saying, look, we don't want nobody talking about this stuff. They're never told why. The upper echelons know why, because they don't want legal responsibility for these rogue Sasquatches killing all of these people. And they don't want to have to deal with the, segregating land, and, there's all kinds of issues that it brings up. So for right now, they can say there's no such thing as Sasquatch, and they're fine. But they also want to make sure that their agencies are not, putting out there that, just like the guy back at Roswell, where he did the press conference, we have a UFO. And then they turned around and said, oh, no, we don't. It was an air balloon. They're going to do that because they don't want their own people confirming this stuff, and putting this big responsibility on the government until there's no other choice. Okay. So that gets trickled down to the next level. By the time you get down to these guys who are at the lower level, they have no idea what the guys at the top are literally saying to do and not to do. All they know is that they don't want this information getting out. That's just the general idea. So you could have a guy in some, and I really don't think that this is the case, but you could have a guy in some lower level, I think the Department of the Interior is who these two men in black are supposed to be. Could be their boss, some guy who's lower management, who's just taking it upon himself to tell these two guys to go out and make sure these people won't talk about stuff. Okay. Now these two guys go out. They haven't been told to threaten anybody. They haven't been told to kill anybody or kidnap anyone or throw a hood over their head. They haven't been told any of that stuff. But they go to the house and they say, we've been told to make sure they don't talk about this, so we're going to threaten them. So it's like that old telephone game that we learned when we were kids, that, what's heard in the beginning and what's heard in the end aren't necessarily the same thing. All right. So I think at best, that's the situation with these men in black. I personally think that it's more likely that there is a connection between these two guys and the lumber industry. That to me is the most likely connection. Whether these two guys actually work for the Department of the Interior and there's some big lumber conglomerate or company or whatever who knows them, who's paying them on the side to do this stuff because they have a whole different agenda and they're trying to use their credentials as a government official to shut these people up. I think that's more likely what's going on there. I think, and the reason is plausible deniability. If the government sends these people out specifically, they create a connection between the government and Bigfoot, and it blows plausible deniability out of the water because you neither confirm nor deny anything. And by sending these people out there to force people to not deny it, you're confirming it. You're confirming it by telling people to deny it. I mean, there's no plausible deniability anymore. And the government doesn't have to do that because the Bigfoot community is its own worst enemy. You know, we have the society at large who doesn't believe in Bigfoot, and then you have the Bigfoot community. Well, when you have people in the Bigfoot community, like what I said earlier in this show, if you believe that you have seen Bigfoots walking through a portal, and you go and scream it from the hilltops, and you can't prove it, then everyone's going to think you're a whack job. And then when you have multiple people in the Bigfoot community saying, oh, they walk through portals, that they are angels, the remnants of the Nephilim, I'm not saying they're not. What I'm saying is that when you take something that's already in itself unproven and hard to believe by society at large, and the government doesn't want to admit them or admit they exist, and you start adding to that all of these other incredible aspects, you further degrade the possibility that anyone's going to take it seriously. I can't say 100%. I can't say, oh, they don't walk through portals. I can say with about 98% surety that probably not. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. I mean, you can be wrong about anything. There's all kinds of great. You know, I have another podcast that talks about some things that could be associated with that, you know, but I'm not going to mix those two podcasts together. But as far as Bigfoot's controlling and walking through portals and being this, you know, technologically advanced creature that has portals to go between dimensions, I don't believe it. And if I was out in the woods and I saw it, I'm not going to tell anybody about it because I don't want to further cause problems for the whole idea of bringing Bigfoot out as a known species. Let's get them to be recognized as a reality before we start making people admit or say, okay, they go through dimensions and they have portals and they fly spaceships or whatever. You know, let's get this first piece done first, because all of this other stuff is just making it a lot harder to get that first piece done. And because of all of these people saying that stuff and damaging the standing of the Bigfoot community and the idea of Bigfoot being real, the government doesn't have to do anything. They don't have to send people out. The only way the government is going to take those. Now, the government used to do crap like that years and years and years ago, because they were going to control stuff, by God. You know, that's the way it was. But they've gotten into so much trouble over that kind of thing over the decades that they don't do that anymore. They have found easier ways to accomplish the same thing. You know, look at the UFOs, Project Blue Book and all that stuff. They have found it's a lot easier. Project Blue Book would be considered probably a disinformation campaign, because they put out their findings and everything, which, you know, whatever. I'm not going to get into that stuff. But, you know, you could consider that disinformation. I could see the government doing. They didn't go out and threaten people. Don't you say you saw a UFO. If you do, you know, your family's going to despair. They didn't do that stuff. You know, I believe they did it back at Roswell, but then they changed, that stopped. You know, they realized all we're doing is making things really bad. We need to stop doing it this way. They developed these other ways of handling situations like this at that time. And now they know the best way to handle it is to say nothing, to allow the nut jobs to make themselves look worse themselves, because we don't have to just don't confirm or deny, you know. And it all just, look at how long the whole UFO thing has gone on, you know. And that would arguably be more prevalent, and it would be more prevalent for a longer period of time than Bigfoot. Bigfoot's only really been prevalent in society at large for the last couple of decades, maybe. Before that, it was just completely, nobody even wanted to hear about it, you know, but people talk about UFOs for decades. Still thought you were nut jobs, but it's not the same situation. So the government doesn't have to send men in black to go and threaten people, and they wouldn't, because plausible deniability. So I don't believe that if there are guys going, and here's the other thing, people. You know, I was in military intelligence and had a very high security clearance for a long time. I'm out here talking about Bigfoot. If the government was threatening people, they would have already talked to me, because it would be easy for them to stop me from talking about it because of my former affiliations. They could just come out here and, you know, because I had a security clearance, put me under that umbrella, tell me to shut the hell up, and that would be that. Hasn't happened yet. I haven't had a single email or anything from anybody threatening me about anything. You know, and I'm able to talk with authority about how classified is handled and who's doing what. I haven't had anybody come out here and tell me to shut up. And let me tell you something. If the government was sending these two dudes around and I was talking about them at all, the government would come after me and tell me to stop doing it. Because they wouldn't care if I was saying negative things or positive things. They just don't want me to talk about it at all. That would be their perspective. Let it die off. Let the people who know nothing talk about it. They don't want anybody, because somebody could latch on to something small I say that, in their opinion, proves this or that. They would just tell me to shut up about it altogether. That has not happened. I've not been threatened by anyone that works for the Department of the Interior. Even though I've sat here and talked crap about them and what they're doing and all that stuff. You know, I guess I have. Well, I guess I am now, at least. Nothing, you know, nothing has happened. I've had one guy, one nut job at some point said something, but he was more of a, I don't know what the heck he was really. He told me to grow up when I said something about, oh, I don't think he listened to the entire episode about the cloaking. And he told me I should grow up, that cloaking's not possible, which is what I said in the video. So he obviously didn't watch the whole thing. The guy was, you know, just another idiot out there who talking through his ass and doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't really, this was kind of all off the cuff. I don't know if I really satisfied what I was trying to get put out there. So let me recap just what my position is. I do believe that the government's covering something up. I don't think that it's to the extent that people are talking. I think people are blowing things out of proportion a little bit. To be completely honest, and you know, you can hate me if you want to. This is just my opinion. I think people are blowing things out of proportion a little bit. I think some people are flat out lying, just because they like the limelight. I mean, be honest, people. We all know people who do that, right? I'm not saying they're all doing it. I'm not even saying I know who is and who isn't. I can tell you, when somebody says that somebody is doing a classified operation, comes into a situation, I can tell you absolutely whether that person is really running a classified operation, because I know how that goes. Whether this person who's talking about that is lying or not, I don't know. But I know that this person here who's supposedly running a classified operation, I can tell you if that's true or not. And I've yet to hear anybody talk about something about classified in a way that's actually accurate. Nobody, nothing. And I would love for somebody to come to me and talk to me about something that really is, because I would love to go down that rabbit hole and find out, you know, I was an analyst. I used to put this stuff together and figure out, put the puzzle pieces together and tell you what was going on. But I have to have accurate information to do that, you know? So if somebody is really out there doing this stuff in a classified manner, I would like to hear it, so that I know that that's what they're really doing, and then take the pieces of that puzzle and put it in there and find out what the truth is behind what they're doing. I would love to do that, but I have yet to hear that. I've heard what is, seems to be a bunch of crap to me so far. And I'm not talking about the people experiencing it. I'm talking about, because I don't know if they're telling the truth or not, like I said. But as far as these other guys, these men in black they're talking about, it's a bunch of crap. They are not working in some classified function because they're not operating in any way, shape, or form that even resembles somebody operating and doing something classified. It's just not there. These guys, from what I've heard, because I watch movies too, folks. I've been in classified. I've been in military intelligence. I worked with the NSA. I worked with DARPA. I worked under the director of the NSA. I know what that world is. I know how it works. And then I've watched movies. Movies do not have it right at all. Now, what I've heard, everything I have heard as far as classified, these men in black and all of this stuff, is like something out of a movie. It has nothing to do with reality. What I have done myself for years. And what these men in black guys are doing, not the same at all. They're not even related. What I see or hear about these men in black guys doing from pretty much everybody is what you see in a movie. And the movies aren't accurate. They're just not. So I don't know if it's being contrived by the individual, the witness, or the men in black, because the witness wouldn't know. I don't know which one of those is true. All I know is that the situation in some way, shape, or form is not accurate. And I've heard other podcasts talk about how these guys who are in the know have talked to them about stuff. And I'm not pointing, there's several guys out there who have said this. I'm not pointing my finger at any single one. But there are some that have said things that I'm telling you is bullshit. Not the facts, but the things, the way they're relating things to them and stuff, it doesn't work. It just doesn't ring true to me. I'm not saying that what's being said in itself is bullshit. But, for instance, if somebody comes to you and they know they've seen something and they want you to believe them, so they tell you that they are such and such to lend credibility to what they're saying to you so that you will believe them more. That's what it sounds like to me. Maybe what they're saying is true. On the face of it, what they're saying is actually accurate because they have personally experienced it. But who they're representing themselves to be, as far as I can tell so far, bullshit. It's not true. Not true at all. So, some people might say that I'm a disinformation person. I am not. Send me these people. I'll talk to them and find out what's going on. I would love to go down that rabbit hole. And being as I've had a clearance that I guarantee you is higher than any one of these, people talking and informing, I'll talk to them all day about this classified stuff and get to the bottom of a lot of stuff if I could talk to them. But, nobody's going to do that because they would be outed. I've made the offer many times to other hosts that let me talk to them for 10 minutes. I'll tell you if they're lying or not. And I've heard some of these other hosts, some, not all, but some of these other hosts say, oh, I vetted them. Well, how the hell did you vet them when you have no friggin' clue what you're talking about? How? Oh, because they told me certain things that ring true. Really? How are they ringing true to you if you've never been involved? Anyway, I'm getting off track. It's just you're trying to give people credibility, and you have no idea what credibility is. So how are you doing it? How? I know what credibility is. I've had one of the highest clearances in the country. I can tell you for sure. But nobody comes and asks me. Anyway, so I believe absolutely that the government is covering shit up, but it's simple stuff. It's like lose the paperwork, so that we can say, oh, wow, we must have lost that. It fell between the cracks. I don't believe they're sending money. They might be. I could be blowing shit out my ass. Maybe I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Maybe the government has changed the way they do things. Maybe they've become more criminal since I was in. I don't know. But I know from my experience, from my rather lengthy experience at the highest levels of classified operations, that the government wouldn't do that kind of thing. Not for these reasons. You give them something really important, a really important reason to do it. Oh yeah, but they're not going to send a guy after you to say, oh, you should shut up. Now, here's the other thing, folks. And how long are we running here? 40 minutes. Okay. Here's the other thing that nobody seems to take into account. If the government, these guys, how many times have you heard Sasquatch Chronicles is a good one? Guy comes on Sasquatch. This is more than one guy who has called in and told his story on Sasquatch Chronicles and said, oh yeah, I had those two guys come out here and tell me I better not talk about anything or this, that, and the other is going to happen and blah, blah, blah. And oh, screw them. And nothing happened to him. The government isn't in the habit of doing that. If the government wants to shut you up, you're going to shut up. I promise you that. If the government really wanted to put a stop to this, if that's what their objective was, these people would not be on Sasquatch Chronicles talking about how these two men in black came and talked to them. Wouldn't happen. The government would just scoop you up and send you to Gitmo. You'd be gone. Bye-bye. Your life is over. That's just the way it would be. You don't just thumb your nose at the government. If the government truly wants you to not say something, you're not going to thumb your nose at them. And the moment you did, you would vanish from the face of the earth. That's just the way it is. National security and all of that, you're gone. Bye-bye. You would be considered a terrorist. You would fall under that act. I mean, we've seen in movies how they talk about under the Terrorist Act, we don't have to give you a lawyer or nothing. That's the way it is. So these people who go on there and say, oh, they came and threatened me, and they're like, I'm a big man. They threatened me and I said, screw them. And I'm on the show and I promise you, I mean, perhaps that guy really is saying, I'm going to, the hell with the man and I'm thumbing my nose at the man and I'm going to talk about this anyway. That may be the case. But the two guys that did come and threaten him were full of shit because they never did a damn thing about it. Right? That's my point. Because if they were really working for the government, that dude probably within 24 hours would have disappeared. He'd be gone. So that's kind of the way that you can tell if it's true or not. That's one of the ways that you, the regular person, can tell if it's true or not. Because if somebody comes on a show and says, they came and talked to me and told me not to say anything to anybody or I'd disappear. If they don't disappear, then it was bullshit. Either what they said or the people who said it to them. One of those two is not true. So, which one, we'll never know. But, because unless you were there and heard the conversation, you're not going to know. I can't say for sure who said what and who's lying and who's not, but I can tell you one thing for sure. If the government tells you to shut up and you don't, you're going to pay a price. You will. Absolutely. I mean, you might have a car accident. Who knows? But you will pay the price. So that's one way I know that it's a bunch of crap. And the other way is because it's just a bunch of crap. I mean, these guys are not operating in any way, shape, or form that's legitimate. So, but I do believe the government is trying to keep it quiet. They're just allowing the Bigfoot community itself to just look so stupid that nobody's going to listen to them when they talk about portals and, spaceships beaming Sasquatch up and down and all this, which I don't know that they're not. If UFOs are going to experiment on cattle, why not Sasquatch? But the point is that to other people, when you talk about that stuff, all you do is make things look more and more ridiculous. So keep it simple. Keep it about recognizing Sasquatch. Once that's done, then let's move on to the other. Once that's done, we can prove the other easily. But until that first step is taken, all it does is hurt things. And that's what the government lets happen. Why not? Disinformation, I think it's quite possible that the people talking about the portals are disinformation. Those are the people working for the government, the ones who are trying to make the whole Sasquatch idea sound more and more ridiculous. That would be a smart disinformation campaign. And I was in airborne school with the guy who was in PsyOps, and I can tell you that he told me some stuff, and that would absolutely fall right in there. That would be exactly the kind of thing they would do. Is just make things sound so ridiculous nobody would ever want to believe in Bigfoot and help us at all. So we're at 46 minutes, I guess. Let me see if you want. What the hell just happened there? Oh, I think my screensaver just tried to come on. Hopefully it didn't screw up my video. Anyway, folks, give me a thumbs up. Well, it looks like my video is delayed. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Hopefully I didn't lose too many of you. It seems like I lose a bunch and I get a bunch, and I lose a bunch and I get a bunch. So my number stays the same all the time, even though my numbers are changing quite drastically over the long haul. It's like, was it 2 steps forward, 1 step back? That seems to be the way that my subscribership goes. I'll gain 6 and I'll lose 5 or 4. That seems to be the way it is. But it is what it is. So like, comment, subscribe. Feel free to comment on what I said in the last video about the FundMe as far as putting together a specialized Sasquatch hunting motorhome and going out and spending a couple of weeks at a time in all of these hot spots looking for evidence of Bigfoot and that kind of thing, which is another reason the government would have already come after me if they were. They would have already said, what do you think you're doing? But anyway, yeah, comment about that stuff. And in the meantime, if you've had an experience that you want to talk about, or if you have any opinions about any of this stuff, or want to discuss your theories, but theories that you've researched, I would hope, or in some way, given a lot of thought to, not just stuff that you're throwing out there. Some people are like that, but things you've really given some thought to, feel free, give me contact me, and we'll get on the show and we'll talk about this stuff. That's what I want to do, is start talking to other people instead of just running my mouth for the whole time. So like, comment, subscribe, contact me. The sashypeblogspot.com is where you can hear the audio only version of this podcast. And sasquatchhypotheses@gmail.com is how you can get a hold of me for whatever reason. If you government guys want to threaten me, there's how you do it. Actually, you government guys who want to threaten me should be able to come right to my door. But, and probably would if you really existed, or if you were really government guys. But those of you who want to contact me, there it is, sasquatchhypotheses@gmail.com. And I think that's it. Until next time, y'all take care.